New York City, 3:13 a.m. At St. Aurelia Hospital, the night was thick with rain. Thunder echoed through the hallways like a slow-moving drumbeat. Inside ICU room 406, monitors beeped in anxious rhythm. Nurse Lila Monroe adjusted the 4-line with the precision of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Her hands were steady. Her eyes were distant. The patient, Harold Klein, 72, recovering from heart surgery, stirred, gasping softly in his sleep. "Shoo," Lila whispered. "It'll be over soon." She pressed a syringe into the foreport, watching the fluid disappear into the line. Moments later, the monitors flatlined. A perfect storm of hypotension and respiratory arrest. Nothing that would raise suspicion, not yet. Lila Monroe had always been invisible. To her colleagues, she was dependable, punctual, unremarkable. To patients, she was comforting. To administrators, a name on a schedule. But in her mind, Lila was playing chess in a hospital full of checkers. The death was recorded as a cardiac complication. Nothing unusual for someone in Harold's condition. But to Dr. Neil Rourke, the hospital's new quality and safety officer, the numbers weren't adding up. Rourke, ex-military and razor-sharp, had taken over audits at St. Aurelia just 2 weeks earlier. He saw things others didn't, patterns buried under paperwork and protocol. He'd already flagged 3 other recent deaths during Lila's night shifts. All older males. All in recovery. All with perfect vitals hours before death. Coincidence? Or something more sinister? Lila sat alone during break, sipping tea in the staff lounge while scrolling through vintage surgery textbooks. Her eyes gleamed as she traced old anatomy diagrams. "They never noticed the brain stem bleed," she murmured to herself. "But I did." Her brilliance had been ignored in nursing school. Her suggestions dismissed. Her evaluations marked competent but passive. But Lila had studied beyond textbooks. For years. Secretly. She wasn't just a nurse. She was an observer. A fixer. And sometimes, a finisher. Rourke requested a quiet review of Harold Klein's autopsy. He met with Dr. Ellen Chu, the hospital's senior pathologist, and pointed out anomalies. Microvascular traces of potassium chloride. Nothing definitive but troubling. Ellen frowned. "You think someone's—" "Not just someone," Rourke said. "A professional. Someone with access. Someone smart." Days later, a 4th patient died. This time, a woman, 58-year-old leukemia survivor post-transplant. Lila had administered meds just an hour earlier. Rourke arrived at the scene before the body was even moved. He scanned the room, nothing out of place. Except the nurse's chart. Lila had written one line, restless but stable. Patient requested solitude. Too simple. Too neat. That night, Rourke pulled Lila's file. Spotless. No complaints. No errors. But also, no promotions. No real interactions with peers. Just a long, quiet trail of night shifts and sudden, peaceful deaths. He called internal affairs. Lila returned home to her apartment in Brooklyn Heights. Minimalist. Clean. She placed a fresh flower in a vase. Took off her shoes. Opened a locked cabinet. Inside were patient bracelets. Each labeled with a name and date. Each attached to a page in her journal. She flipped to the latest. Harold Klein. Aortic valve repair. Lonely. Regretful. Called me Angel in his sleep. I helped him find silence. She smiled faintly. They don't suffer. They thank me. The next night, Lila walked through the hospital halls like a ghost. Rourke shadowed her from a distance, pretending to review charts. He watched her comfort a patient, adjust medication, whisper something soothing. He couldn't reconcile it. The warmth in her tone, the tenderness in her hands. Was it possible for a killer to be kind? That was the question that kept him awake. 2 nights later, another patient coded. But this time something went wrong. The patient, a young man with a ruptured spleen, survived. Barely. And when he woke, he mumbled a name. Lila. The hospital was locked down. Rourke moved fast. He pulled security footage, matched med logs, and finally found her. Injecting something during an unlogged room entry. She was arrested at the end of her shift. Unflinching. As the cuffs clicked around her wrists, she turned to Rourke. I saved them from dying alone, she said. I only gave them what no one else would. Mercy. And as she was led away, the nurses watched in stunned silence. Some wept. Some whispered. She held my father's hand until the end. She stayed late every night. She was the kindest nurse I've ever known. But Rourke couldn't forget the look in her eyes. Not guilt. Not sadness. Satisfaction. Storm was coming. And this was only the beginning.
6 months later, the courtroom at Manhattan Criminal Court buzzed with tension. Reporters packed the benches. Camera lenses clicked. A national debate had sparked around a single question. Was Lila Monroe a murderer or a mercy worker? Dressed in a charcoal gray suit, Lila sat with her hands folded, expression unreadable. She looked more like a librarian than the central figure in one of New York's most chilling criminal cases. The prosecution painted her as cold, calculating. A predator hiding behind a stethoscope. Assistant District Attorney Myra Keene laid out a pattern of 12 suspicious deaths, all tied to Lila's night shifts. She presented footage, patient logs, and chilling autopsy reports. Potassium chloride, air embolisms, silent code events. Clean, undetectable deaths. But the defense, led by renowned forensic psychiatrist Dr. Malcolm Creel, argued that Lila wasn't evil. She was empathetic to a fault. Suffering from a rare form of hyperempathy disorder triggered by unresolved childhood trauma and professional neglect. She didn't kill out of malice, Creel said. She genuinely believed she was helping them. That her mercy was a kindness no one else would provide. The media dubbed her the Night Angel. Public opinion fractured. Some saw a monster in scrubs. Others saw a savior failed by a broken system. Inside the court, one of the surviving patients testified. She held my hand, he said. She told me to close my eyes and rest. Then everything went black. Dr. Rourke was called to testify. Calm, precise, he described his investigation, the irregularities he uncovered, and the moment he realized who Lila truly was. She wasn't just intelligent, he said. She was invisible. She built trust so well, we never saw her coming. When asked if he believed she was a danger, he paused. I believe she thought she was saving them. But belief doesn't absolve harm. Lila refused to take the stand. But her journal was entered into evidence. Passages were read aloud in court. They died whispering thank you. Isn't that what we all want? A peaceful goodbye? Another, no alarms, no fear, just stillness. Finally, the jury deliberated for 4 days. On the 5th they returned. Guilty, the foreman said. On 12 counts of second-degree murder. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Some cried. Others clapped. Lila didn't blink. As the judge sentenced her to life in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, she only said one thing. They never thanked me out loud. But their eyes did. 3 months later, an anonymous letter was sent to Rourke's office. It contained only 3 words. She wasn't alone. Rourke's hands trembled slightly as he reread it. And far away in another hospital, on another night shift, a nurse watched a monitor flatline and smiled. Months after the verdict, Rikers Island held many secrets, but none quite like Lila Monroe. She moved through prison life with eerie calm, like a librarian who'd simply lost her way. She read psychology books. She painted watercolors of hospital corridors. She never spoke to inmates unless spoken to. Yet something was shifting. Rumors swirled, not just of her case but of others like it. Deaths in care homes. Unexplained codes and night shifts across other hospitals. Always gentle. Always clean. In her cell, Lila received 2 letters each week. No return address. No signature. Just brief messages. One sole rest. One more to go. We carry the silence now. She burned them after reading. Always. Dr. Rourke hadn't slept in weeks. The anonymous letter, she wasn't alone, haunted him. He kept it locked in a drawer, but his mind returned to it like a splinter. One night, unable to resist, he reopened the files. Not just Lila's, but others flagged in his database. A nurse in Syracuse. A hospice aide in Buffalo. A paramedic in Jersey City. All had spotless records. All had patients who died silently, smiling. Rourke's gut twisted. He built a profile, a network. It began to form a chilling web. Professionals trained to comfort, using their tools to end. Was it a cult? A belief system? A reaction to medical bureaucracy? He called the FBI. Warden Alvarez had seen many kinds of prisoners. None like Lila. She refused appeals, declined therapy, but never caused trouble. Until one morning her cell was found empty. No forced entry. No broken locks. Just a folded nurse's uniform on the bed. And inside the pocket, a note. They will suffer until they see. Panic gripped the city. How did she escape? Who helped her? Why now? Brooklyn, 3:15 a.m., a new hospital. A man coded during routine recovery. No witnesses. No signs of trauma. Just peace. Too much peace. Security footage? Erased. Nurse log? Signed off by someone already off shift. A new name surfaced in hospital systems, Lila Monroe. An alias? Rourke knew. Flashback, 3 years earlier. In a dim classroom, Lila sat beside 3 other nurses during a workshop. The instructor spoke about death with dignity, patient autonomy, moral fatigue. One woman raised her hand. If a person begs to go, truly begs, do we not have a duty to listen? Another nodded. Lila just smiled. It wasn't just her. It had never been just her. Present-day FBI operations briefing. The task force was called Silent Mercy. They tracked patient deaths by cluster, profiling caretakers who had unusual outcomes, especially those who worked nights, were praised for compassion and left little trace. They found patterns. Forums hidden on the dark web. Coded language in nursing notes. And always the same phrase. Quiet hands. Clean exits. Blue eyes. No one knew what it meant. In Rourke's apartment, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a child's drawing of a nurse holding a patient's hand. The patient was smiling. The 4-line ran to a heart that had stopped. On the back, she taught me. I'm still learning. Rourke slumped into his chair, heart pounding. It wasn't over.
Somewhere in Maine, a small palliative care home. Wooden floors. Soft music. A nurse bends over an old woman whispering, "It's okay. You're not alone." The woman smiles. Her hand is held. Her breath slows. The monitor flatlines. The nurse stands. She walks into the hallway, passing another nurse. They nod at each other in silence. On the wall hangs a photo of Florence Nightingale. Beneath it, etched in careful handwriting, "Not all angels wear wings. Some carry syringes." A month later, while investigation went on at the FBI Special Operations HQ, the Silent Mercy Task Force had grown. With Dr. Rourke's continued guidance, patterns became clearer. Connections tightened. They now believed there were at least 17 active members of the group across 5 states. But only one name truly mattered, Lila Monroe. Until they found her, none of the others could be stopped. Enter Special Agent Maya Delgado. She wasn't loud. She didn't carry bravado. But her mind was a scalpel, methodical, sharp, clean. Delgado didn't follow leads. She dissected them. She found what others missed. An encrypted server hidden in the dark web's medical supply forum. And there it was, Lila's true signature. She had been recruiting, not hiding. Delgado also found something else. A pattern in the artwork Lila left behind in prison. The watercolors were maps, aerial views of hospice centers, coded through color. The one with the most red? A facility in upstate Connecticut. Connecticut, New Life Hospice, 2 a.m. Delgado waited in a van with FBI support. Rourke was there too, heart pounding. They watched infrared footage. Inside the hospice, a figure in scrubs moved down the corridor, paused by a patient's door, then stepped inside. A second figure stood at the hallway's end, a lookout. Delgado gave the signal. Inside the room, Lila Monroe stood over an unconscious patient, 4 in hand. Her eyes were calm, almost serene. Then, a voice behind her. "Don't move." It was Delgado. Lila didn't flinch. She simply smiled. "You're too late." "She's not dead," Delgado said, stepping forward. "And you're not walking out." Rourke entered the room next, staring at the woman who had haunted his thoughts. "Why, Lila?" he asked. "Why keep going?" Lila's smile faltered. "Because mercy isn't legal. But it should be. They ask us with their eyes. We just listen." Delgado stepped forward, cuffs ready. "You're not listening. You're deciding. There's a difference." Lila didn't resist. She turned, placing her hands behind her back. Media frenzy days later. The arrest rocked the nation. The photos of Lila in cuffs, still in her nurse's scrubs, dominated headlines. Angel of death caught. Mercy or murder? The nurse cult ends. But behind closed doors, Delgado and Rourke knew better. There were still others. Still whispers. But they had the leader. In Rourke's office, Delgado placed a file on his desk. Her followers are scattering. Some deleted everything. Some fled. But without her they're unmoored. And the patients? Rourke asked. Delgado hesitated. A few will live longer. A few might suffer more. But at least, it'll be their choice. In a prison transport van, Lila sat in silence, hands shackled, eyes staring ahead. Across from her sat a young officer, eyes nervous. Lila leaned forward slightly. "You know," she whispered, "people don't really fear death. They fear dying alone." The officer swallowed hard but said nothing. The van pulled away into the night.